family.
Hello and welcome to Film with Family. I'm Austin.
And I'm Zach.
And we are two cousins who like to talk about movies. This week, we have a very special guest, my stepfather, Steve Downs.
Hey, Oz. Hey, Zach. How you doing?
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Good to
We're
see
doing
ya.
good. Yeah, great to have you here.
Awesome to be on the show.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And we will be reviewing one of your favorite films, the sci-fi epic Kubrick's opus, the masterpiece, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
All of those are correct, yes.
Yeah, we haven't really covered any hard sci-fi movies on the podcast, I feel like. So this is exciting to...
Yeah, that's kind of surprising now that I think about it, but you're right.
I mean, Predator a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
And this is the hardest sci-fi of them all.
This is it, man.
And a masterpiece for the Master Chief. Many people out there will know that Steve is most well known now in his career as being the voice of Master Chief in the Halo franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Master Chief as well.
Yeah.
Who knows a little something about space himself.
Yes, he does. He has more than a passing
Understanding.
but yes, indeed.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, Halo was a video game series. I think the first Halo was that 2000 or 2000?
Well, coincidentally, the first Halo game was 2001.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
Combat Evolved. That's a great game.
Indeed. Yeah, and it has been going ever since.
Yeah. You've had an incredible run with that game. How many games has it been now? So Halo Combat Evolved.
It's been Combat Evolved 2, 3, 4, 5, which was called Guardians, and the latest iteration is Halo Infinite. And then I did a little bit on Halo Reach, and then there's been a couple of other Halo offshoots that I didn't participate in, ODST and Halo Wars. Master Chief wasn't in those, but as far as the numbered series, so we're up to 6 at this point.
Wow. And it feels like the fandom around you and Master Chief has done nothing but accelerate in the last couple years.
It's weird because you're right. And you've had the opportunity, you and Zach have had the opportunity to sort of experience up close and personal, but really within the last several years, it has expanded, and I think it has to do with the fact that people have literally grown up with this game, and so what I see, I go to these conventions all the time, and what I see now that I never saw, 5 years ago, was how many people talk about, me and my dad used to play this game, or me and my mom played it, or, it was the connection I had with my older brother or my uncle, or so, and so I think, there's a nostalgic element, for a game that's been around for 20 odd years, and it's a connection, in families and in friends that can only happen with something that you literally grow up playing. And so that's my only explanation for why the lore of Master Chief has grown over the years. Yeah.
You got film with family, you also got video games with family.
There you go. Yeah. and now it's it's also a series on Paramount Plus, so that's just another way to sort of experience the Halo universe, as it were.
So one of the first films that I ever made in college that I was really proud of was a short profile that I made about you, and your life as, at that time, both a DJ on The Drive, the classic rock station here in Chicago, which you were the host of for how many years?
14 years.
14 years doing the morning
Yeah.
show there. And, at that time, Halo was just kind of, I don't know, it was starting to be a big deal in your career, right? Because
Yeah, kind of. I mean, nothing really the way it is now, but so that would have been what year? What do we I
that
can't
was
remember.
2008. So it was like, I
Yeah, so
think
okay,
Halo
so
3.
yeah. So that was pretty new
Yeah.
in terms of even though we're talking, 7 years at that point since the first
Hmm.
game came out. And Halo 3 is still considered by fans to be the crown jewel of all the Halo games. So yeah, that was sort of a key moment
Yeah.
coincidentally when we
Yeah.
ended up doing that document. Suburban
And
Superhero it was called.
it was still to this day one of my most successful uploads on YouTube. Has done nothing but just gain traction through the last 15 years. And so beginning last year, we decided, since COVID had settled down a little bit, that we would do a follow-up documentary to that one that we made. And so we've been following you around to a few of these conventions. Me and Zach helped out with one in Chicago. We did one in Raleigh. We did
Right.
one in Las Vegas. Just going to these, following you to these conventions, showing you behind the table, signing autographs, talking to the fans, and then also talking to all the other voice personalities that you're around. So
Yeah.
we've gotten interviews with David Hayter, Troy Baker, even Marty O'Donnell,
Jen Taylor, the voice of
Jen
Cortana.
Taylor, voice of Demon Slayer, just like all these random people that were just around us. I mean, I think there's even a couple shots of you with the voice of Sonic and Tails, and
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. No,
like,
it's well, yeah. You got introduced into this. I call it a traveling circus because that's what it feels like. We have, you know, the two-headed dwarf and the alligator woman, and
yeah,
and we
and the
all,
voice of Master Chief,
and the voice of Master Chief, and we all set up our little tent someplace and put on a show for a few days, and then break it down and move to the next town. So, yeah, at my advanced age, I've finally run away and joined the circus.
Yeah, I'll say I had a great time last year in the Chicago Fan
Yeah.
Expo. I was like such a surreal experience getting to interview David Hayter from Metal Gear Solid. He plays Solid Snake and Big Boss.
Yeah,
Like
great
I
guy.
love those games, and he's
Yeah.
such a nice guy. And Troy Baker is super nice, who plays
Yeah,
Joel. And The
right.
Last of Us, another incredible video game franchise. So
Indeed.
as a big video gamer, I think I'll say I'm the biggest video gamer of the three of us.
I think that's safe to say.
Yep.
Yeah. I was in heaven. I was like, this is so cool. And like you guys were all seated right next to each other at the expo. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. So I guess to anybody out there who's a Halo fan or a Steve Downes fan, Master Chief fan, we're working on the edit right now of this documentary. We've got a lot of footage and a lot of really good footage. So we're going through it all right now, and we're hoping to have it edited by the end of this year. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Not only just, and as you and I talked about when you first came up with the idea is, yeah, this is the central story, I suppose, is, Master Chief, 15 years later.
Yeah.
But it's also this world, this gaming pop culture convention world that I don't think anybody's ever really done justice to in terms of letting the outside person have a peek into what happens. And these things happen all over the world, and they draw tens of thousands of people, and but you're either in the know or you're not. And so I think what I'm hoping that the documentary will do also is let people have a peek inside that world that they might not otherwise have.
Yeah, yeah, and we got some really great footage interviewing just people at these conventions, what brings them there, not
Yeah.
necessarily people who are even Halo fans or came there to
Right.
talk to you. Like it's just
Right.
people who have these incredible costumes on that they've spent years making, and just for this one day or this one
Right.
event to just
Right.
come and show it off. And so it really is a gold mine for somebody like me sometimes it's difficult to like get somebody comfortable in front of a camera, but all of these conventions that we've done, and Zach, you saw firsthand, it's like you just walk up to people and like, yeah, what do you want to know? I'll tell you anything. Like, and it's like,
Yeah.
and everybody's so positive and so like accepting of everyone, non-judgmental. It really is like a beautiful atmosphere.
It really is. I mean, you talk about diversity. You can't get more diverse than the group you're going to find at a pub. They're not even video game conventions. I call them pop culture conventions because they encompass video games, animation, movies. Professional wrestling has a prominent role in it.
Yeah. I remember I think it was Raleigh, like Jake the Snake was there.
Yeah.
This is Jake the Snake. All right.
And they had the hobbits from the Lord of the Rings movies when we were there, and Ron Perlman and
Perlman.
That was awesome. I heard you got to meet Brendan Fraser recently.
Well, I met Brendan. That was in Raleigh, wasn't it, Austin?
Yeah, he was seated right next to you.
And again, super nice guy. And then lately, the one I just came back from in Nashville, got to meet and hang with Chuck Norris, who is also an incredibly, almost, I don't want to say shockingly, but I mean, he just is so outgoing and friendly and goes out of his way to make you feel comfortable with him. And I was blown away. And it was a pleasure to meet him and talk with him for a little bit.
You said that Chuck Norris came up to you and introduced himself to you.
Yeah. Now, believe me, I don't think he knew who I was. I don't think it was, I got to meet Steve Downs.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that. Although I did have an experience at a convention recently, and you're going to have to help me because his name is not coming to me right now, but the guy from Breaking Bad, Giancarlo
Esposito.
Thank you, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
So he's on this circuit, right? And we're at a show and we're back in the green room just hanging out. And he comes up to me and he says, "Listen, man, my nephew is in town." And he said the one person he wanted to meet was the voice of Master Chief. And I don't even know who in the hell Master Chief is, but would you mind talking and signing a couple things for my nephew?
Wow.
I'm like, well, Giancarlo, I suppose.
Gus, I guess I can do it for you, Gus.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for me in return?
That's right. How are you going to help me? But anyway, so yeah, I mean, you have those kind of experiences that are kind of cool.
That's so cool. Yeah. Want to double back a little bit on your Brendan Fraser encounter, because as I've been going, because they're very strict about not shooting in the green room with all of the talent. So we couldn't really have our cameras on in any of those situations where you were meeting all of these famous folks that were at the conventions. But we were we have you mic'd up like 24/7. So you're on a hot mic, throughout the whole day. And so we were in another room interviewing a guy who like kind of just sets up your autograph tent and all of that stuff, and just asking him about like kind of the logistics of that. And as we were going through it, I hear in my other ear, like, "Hey, Brendan, how you doing? Nice to meet you." And if you don't mind, can I play that audio?
Yeah, I don't think there's much, but sure. Yeah.
I just want people to hear you meeting the whale himself, Brendan Fraser.
That's right. The mummy.
Yeah, we got just a little piece of it on a hot mic, so I'll play that.
Brendan, I'm Steve Downs. I'm right next to you today, so I just wanted to say hello. And a big fan of your work and everything. Hope things are going well.
All good.
Good.
Did you come from California?
No, I'm in. Where am I now? Chicago. Exactly.
Who's your daddy?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're in Chicago. We bought a place in Sarasota, like all old people do, and then
of all of these people that you've run into, is there one that stands out as like your favorite person, or like somebody who you were like a big fan of,
Well,
or starstruck?
the one that comes to mind immediately is Keith David, who has a great film catalog.
The Thing,
I think. The Thing, Platoon,
mm-hmm.
And is also the voice of the Arbiter, who is Master Chief's sort of they're kind of enemies.
Rival.
His rival, right? Thanks, Zach. Yeah, in the first few games, and then they become allies later. But I just have always had a great respect for Keith David as an actor, as a voice actor. So when we got to be on a panel together, and I was the fanboy in that particular situation. I was very starstruck by that. And I met a lot of the Star Trek people, Shatner and a lot of the Next Generation people, with the exception of Jean-Luc. I've not met him, but so, meeting those, being like, I was obviously, I was a fan of Star Trek, growing up, and then Star Trek Next Generation. So it was cool to meet those guys. And
that was in Raleigh, right? Didn't like Shatner bring in like the governor or something, or like he was like,
I don't, he's at a lot of these things, and they all sort of blend together. And usually he's not the most approachable guy in the world. Although at the last one, he was. And also, you got to give the guy his due. He's 90 some years old, been to space a couple of years ago, right? He looks great for his age, and still goes, does these conventions, on a fairly regular basis. So, hats off to him.
Yeah. Got to respect his version of Rocket Man. Have you ever seen his performance of Rocket Man?
Right. Do we have to respect that? Really?
One of my favorite live performances.
Yeah, another cool thing about these conventions, it seems like you've really befriended some of these other guys that do the circuits. Like, it seemed like you had a pretty good friendship with Troy Baker from The Last of Us.
I've known Troy. Yeah, Troy. I actually met Troy at one of the first conventions I ever did, and he was a veteran even by that time, and that might have been around 2008. To be honest, it was somewhere around there when one of the first shows I ever did, and he was there, and was just sort of embracing and kind of. Was showing me the ropes of the convention business. If you will. So yeah, and he's a really nice guy and a tremendous actor, and I really have a high respect for his work.
Yeah, he's done so many roles. If you just like check out all the things he's done on Wikipedia, it's like he's done more things than you can imagine.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
He's the voice of Joker, right? He does Joker and
like one of the animated series or something like that, or a video game.
I think so. Yeah. And then of course, the main guy in The Last of Us, and had a role in the HBO series too. A small.
Right.
Yeah, his episode is really good. Yeah,
it is really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I also understand you were interested, maybe like covering The Last of Us for the podcast. You're a fan of the series?
Big fan. I think I will say that this publicly, it is the best film adaptation of a video game, bar none.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just think they and part of it I think has to do with the fact that the creator of the game collaborated with the filmmakers. So it a lot of times the video game people are discarded. It's like, yeah, okay, we got this.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with The Last of Us. So I just thought they nailed it. And I never played the game, have played the game, and yet was thoroughly engrossed by the series wasn't. There was a friend of mine who does play the game, and he could fill me in on the how this was game related and that. But even if you don't have that, it just as a standalone series, I think they just did a hell of a job, and I can't wait for the next season.
Yeah, I played the game and I watched the series, and yeah, it's cool to see how they found ways to deviate from things that were in the game as well and make it
But it
their
didn't
own.
bother you, right? I mean, it didn't bother
No,
you.
yeah, just enriched experience. That was like some of the best stuff of the show was
Yeah,
when they added their own new characters or more backstory, and
exactly.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
really well done. Yeah.
yeah. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would be interested to hear your take, Steve, on how, video games have kind of become a primary storytelling mode,
Yeah.
like TV or like movies. And I don't know, like when you're approaching Master Chief, do you like approach it kind of like an acting role? Like, I mean, it's not
Very much
just a
so.
voice. Yeah.
No,
Like,
it's very much so because you are telling a story. There is a story there. I mean, I think people, there's three types of gamers. There's the people who just like the gameplay part, and all the other stuff is, just a distraction. There are people who really love the story, and the gameplay is secondary, and then there's the people who like all of it.
mhm,
So I think it has become a major source of what we used to when growing up with films and television, the fantasies that we would create from those things now are serviced by video games,
mhm.
and with the added thing of actually participating in the story. You are an active participant. You're not a
Right.
passive participant. So as an actor, when you go into to voice these characters, you have to, if you want to have it have any weight at all, you have to approach it that way. To be able to do the character justice, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I just think that it's so cool how video games have evolved into this like prime. I mean, I think the video game industry eclipses like in terms of like financially, I
Oh,
think the video
absolutely.
game industry makes 10 times the amount of money that cinema or TV makes, like
I think
combined.
you're
Yeah.
well, especially if you
I don't have the
combine.
numbers on that, but it's
Well,
up there, I think.
I can tell you this. Somebody who I won't mention his name, but he would have knowledge of such a thing,
Hmm.
estimates that the Halo franchise over the last 22 years has made somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 billion. That does not include the hardware. That doesn't
Wow.
include how many people bought Xboxes because they wanted to play Halo, because Halo is one of those. It's proprietary to Xbox for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
eventually they made it available on PC and that kind of thing, but it's not something you can play on PlayStation or Nintendo or whatever.
Yeah, they should just change the name to Halo Box at this point.
Well, I guess so, but yeah, so $15 billion from one video game, or one video
That's
game. So
incredible. That's
yeah,
incredible.
pretty
Um,
pretty amazing. And to answer your next question, no, I don't get residuals.
and how much of that $15 billion do you have?
That'd be a
Um,
big fat zero.
um, so I guess it's safe to say you are a action star yourself.
Okay, sure.
I'll give it to you. And having just met Chuck Norris, I'm just curious, who are some of your favorite action movie stars?
Hmm.
I know we were kind of talking about this last night. We had dinner, and you were telling me that you liked the Arnold documentary that came out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite action stars, but I mean, hey, I loved the Terminator series, most of
Of
them.
course, yeah.
I liked Total Recall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, he's been involved with some pretty cool films
And
uh,
sci-fi stuff, which is
and
your
sci-fi.
bread and butter.
Exactly. But action star. Well, the name that first thought, best thought, Clint Eastwood,
Oh,
and
right.
because he was in many ways the model for me developing the voice of Master Chief. Marty
Mm.
O'Donnell, who you mentioned, who was the integral in the creation of the game and part of the one of the founding fathers of Bungie and all that.
Composer.
That was composed all the music in the Bungie games, cast all the voices. That was the direction he gave me when we went in to do Combat Evolved. He said, think of Clint Eastwood when Clint Eastwood was doing the spaghetti westerns. He didn't say much, but when he did, somebody usually got killed. So, that was my launch pad for developing the voice of Master Chief. And it's funny because recently, and I don't even know why, I was watching some old clips from the old Bungie games, especially Combat Evolved and Halo 2, and listening to the voice, I can really hear the Clint Eastwood affectation of those early games. I don't think it's that apparent in the later games. I think eventually, I sort of developed my own voice for him, but we certainly started with a Clint Eastwood. And to me, one of the greatest westerns ever made was The Unforgiven. I think that's just a masterpiece of in terms of the Western film.
Yeah,
which he starred in. And
so not only are you well known for your role as Master Chief, but you were also like we were saying, a radio DJ for most of your
44 years. Yeah.
44 freaking years.
Freaking years.
That's so you started out in Pittsburgh, Ohio?
Well, my very first job was at the college radio station in Dayton, Ohio, at the University of Dayton. That was my very first. That was 1969, something like that. And I was doing a weekend night show, and it was total free form. We got to play whatever we wanted. You walked into the station with a joint and a handful of albums, and the rest was up to you. And so that, and then I moved, when I graduated, I was in a small town called Athens, Ohio, and worked at a station there, and then to Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and brief time in Florida, and then Chicago, where I ended up. But it was that was my day job.
Yeah.
For a long time.
And for a long time you did Rockline in LA, right?
I did Rockline for a few years in the early 90s, I think 2 or 3 years, which was a nationally syndicated radio show, live 90-minute interview / call-in show with mostly rock and roll folks. And that was a great experience. I really loved doing that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of my favorite stories about an interview that you did is kind of ties into our last episode that we did with Zach's dad, Uncle Mark. We did Rockers, which is a Jamaican film, and you interviewed Bob Marley.
I did interview Bob Marley. It wasn't on Rockline, but it was when I was in Pittsburgh, actually, somewhat early in my career. It was I want to say 77, somewhere around there, 76, one of Marley's first national tours. And he came to Pittsburgh, and the record company set up, the most important thing is I got to see him, which was still one of the great concerts of my life to witness. And I was a relatively new Bob Marley fan at that point,
Wow.
Like most of us suburban white kids were, just sort of
just coming on the scene.
Yeah. And after the show, I was brought back to the hotel suite where he was staying, he and his entourage. And when I say entourage, I mean family and kids and aunts and uncles and band members, but it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a guy who I worked with. I was his boss, actually, and he did the overnight show, and he was begging me to come to the interview with him or with me. And I said, okay. I mean, I said, I don't know, man. You're not. I'm not sure. And he said, look, I'll take the pictures. I'll do all the pictures for the while you're doing it. So I said, okay, cool. Got permission. He came back with me. So got to meet Bob Marley. Interviewed him in his hotel room. A joint the size of your arm is floating around. Never offered to me, by the way.
Oh, too bad.
But I think it was. It has more to do. My thinking of it at the time was, Rastafarians approach that in a very different way than we do.
Right. Yeah, that's a religious experience. Yeah,
it's a religious thing, and it's just not. If I had my own joint, that would have been fine. But
yeah.
Anyway, and the things that the two standout things I remember about that interview is that it took me half the interview to understand him,
right?
Because he's coming off in that thick Jamaican dialect.
Yeah, the patois, as we were learning about it. Yeah,
very thick. And I literally, the first half of the interview, I couldn't understand a word he said. Mm-hmm. So I was asking questions that didn't require follow-up.
Yeah. You're just like,
Yeah, got it. So my next question. Yeah. Eventually, as your ear sort of tunes into it, you become a little more, I could understand it a little better. And then the second thing I remember is the moron who I brought with me neglected to put film in the camera. I have no visual documentation that this actually ever occurred.
Oh, God.
Wow, some cameraman. Jeez.
Yeah, really. I mean, I could have killed him. What? Jesus. And of course, at that time, we didn't even realize the importance of being able to be in Bob Marley's presence because he died a year or so later, and I didn't realize. I mean, it was cool to meet him and everything, but it was you didn't realize you were meeting a giant.
Yeah,
and
how could you know? Yeah.
At that point, I was relatively new to reggae, and
so was the whole culture.
Yeah, I mean, really, in the United States, we were all pretty new to it. I think they were hip to it in Britain and obviously in Jamaica, but yeah, it was sort of a new thing. So I didn't even realize until now, if I saw that guy again, I'd kill him.
But do you have the recording at least? Do you
somewhere? I have the recording somewhere, but
wow,
trying to find it, and also the problem with because I've done this, I've gone through some of my old stuff, and sometimes the problem is finding a piece of equipment that will actually play.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it's on cassette, and I have kept a cassette player for that reason only, so that I could actually, and then some of it's on reel-to-reel tape that is 2-track and half-track and 4-track, and you just can't find those machines. In fact, I think, the Marley thing is on cassette for sure. I had another interview of somebody of great notoriety. It's escaping my mind, but it's on a reel-to-reel. And no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. It was my old high school rock and roll band, and we recorded our set list one time in my basement. My mom and dad had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, which was a rarity back in the 60s.
Right.
And but we recorded it on some kind of 2-track or 4 something, and you had to. They just don't make those machines. I mean, now they don't even make reel-to-reels at all. But when I several years ago, it was a long time that I finally found some vintage recording studio in Chicago, and the guy was a bit of a equipment collector, and he had the right machine that I could play this back on and get it put onto a compact disc, which is what I did.
Well, didn't Kim digitize a lot of those things for you?
She digitized my daughter, Kimberly Bolton, who was on the show.
Yeah,
with
she was great.
Yeah,
she did great. Twister, check it out.
Yeah. And Kim is very familiar with my 2001 obsession, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're talking about a movie eventually here.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were in a band. What was the instrument you played?
I started with guitar and then transitioned to drums when I got to college. I was a better drummer than I was a guitar player, and I still play a little guitar, but just kind of messing around. And but I was in a band from the time I was 13 until somewhere midway through college. We played at bars and bar mitzvahs and fraternity parties and the usual circuit.
You like writing original songs and all that?
No. This was way before. No, you guys and your band, way ahead of us. I mean, no, back then everybody was just a cover band. We were all just covering, whatever the hits of the day were.
Yeah. So your bread and butter was like kind of classic rock in terms of like the kind of music you enjoy, right?
Well, it was, yeah, but you have to understand it wasn't classic then.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin was a new group. Let It Bleed was a new album. Yes, it became classic rock, and that's what it is to this day. And so, in terms of my career, that was certainly what I was most attached to and most familiar with.
Yeah, who are some of the other like guys that you really like respected, and like some of your guys that you got to meet or interview through your radio career?
Well, the obvious ones, which would be the Beatles and the Stones. I often say the Beatles changed my life in every way that something can change your life. There's just there's no doubt about it. And the Stones, because they're the Stones, and Zeppelin, and sort of all the classic guys I've gotten to meet. I never met any of the Beatles or the Stones, but I've met and interviewed Robert Plant and Jimmy Page several times. The Aerosmith guys, pre-sober, by the way.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah.
Lemmy from Motorhead. Speaking of pre-sober, that was another. That was an interesting weekend.
Weren't you kind of friends with Joe Walsh?
Joe Walsh I knew early on, first as a fan growing up in Ohio. The James Gang were from the Cleveland area, and so I saw that band before they even made any records, and then Joe, later on, Joe became very radio friendly, and he would go to radio stations all the time, and so yeah, I got to meet him and hang out with him. We went to Hawaii for the station I was working for in LA had a week-long Hawaii broadcast, and Joe came along, and that was an experience.
Yeah, I got to imagine.
Yeah,
that sounds like so much fun.
Again, Joe pre-sober.
Yeah.
Thank God he's so, and because he's, he probably wouldn't be with us if he didn't, but a really cool guy and a great guitar player.
I have a quick question about Joe Walsh. Yeah. Does his Maserati go 185?
Absolutely. Standing still.
My Maserati
185. I lost my license. Now I can't drive.
Yeah. I got into a big Joe Walsh phase last year, a couple years ago. I love Barnstorm and all that stuff. Anyway, I digress.
There, yeah. Yes, we digress. Okay.
So, shall we talk about this movie that's been talked about more than any other movie in the history of
certainly
mankind?
It could very well be, and there is one. It's interesting because in preparation for this, obviously I wanted to rewatch the movie, and I've seen that movie more than I've seen any movie ever by a long shot. And you and I have experienced it in unique circumstances.
Just talk about that.
Yeah, I saw it on first release back in the spring of 1968. With my girlfriend, Barb Schneider. I remember her name. I remember everything about that night.
Wow. Can you take us there? What was that night like?
So, she was my girl. And so we went to the movies, and I was intrigued because I was already a science fiction fan at that point, but I knew nothing about the film.
How old at that point?
I would have been 18. I would have been 18.
Oh, wow.
And I knew zero about this movie. There was no press I read. It was a different time then. And
did you know anything about Kubrick or?
Not really. No,
okay.
Not really. No, yeah. I maybe had seen Dr. Strangelove, maybe, but I really, I just was going cause it seemed like a cool movie, and that was it.
Yeah.
One of the many, many, many interesting things was this movie was presented, like you're seeing an opera. right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a prelude. You
Right.
walk in, there's a blank screen, and they're just playing all this weird music.
Mhm.
And then the movie starts. There's an intermission. I think
Right.
it may have been the second time in my life I ever went to see a movie and there was an intermission. The first
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
was Ben-Hur. I remember going to that with
Oh,
my
wow.
dad. And then yeah. So I mean, the whole environment was foreign to me.
Right.
And by the time the movie, but by the time the film was over, my mind was spaghetti. And I don't think Barb really liked it all that much. I couldn't put a sentence together coming out of that film, and I just thought it was just earth shaking to me, that experience, and one that I will never forget. And the other thought that I have, and this may sound a little presumptuous on my part, but I take pride, if that's the right word, in saying that my favorite movie of all time, number one, numero uno, is also happens to be one of the greatest motion pictures ever made by anybody's
good taste.
measure. Yeah, I mean, so I'm proud of that.
And that you had like an early jump on it, and you kind of got your mind blown before anybody else did.
Yeah. And then
at the time, people weren't that thrilled with it when it first came out, right? I mean, it took some time for it to catch on.
And it eventually did. It was one of the biggest selling movies of that year. It turned out. But yeah, I mean, the story of the premiere of 2001 is fascinating in that it was roundly panned.
Yeah.
One of the only favorable reviews initially of 2001 was written by Roger Ebert. He was one of the few critics nationally. I don't even think he was national at that time. At that time, I think he was still just Chicago based, but he was one of the few who liked the film. It was universally panned. And the story that you shared with me, Austin, that I watched of the guy who wrote the book of the making of 2001 and the Chicago Humanities talk that he gave.
Yeah.
He gets into detail about the night of the premiere and how hundreds of people were walking out of the theater, leaving, not they're leaving midway. They're out.
Grim-faced, Kubrick was lost in thought, and tears of humiliation could clearly be seen on Clark's face. A flood of people left at the intermission, including Clark. And in the end, over 240 people walked out that night. And we know that because Kubrick told Jack Nicholson that back when they were shooting The Shining, and he remembered the exact number. It's so typical of Kubrick, 240. He remembered.
Now, but I mean, think of how crushing this man had just spent the last
4 years,
4 or 5 years, an immense amount of time and energy that was put into making this film. And there was never a more hands-on director than Stanley Kubrick, that's for sure. And imagine how crushing that was that night when he came away. And it was, like I said, it wasn't just panned, it was universally panned. And MGM's ready to blow their brains out. They're thinking we just dumped a shit ton of money and this is going to be a bomb. Now, it wasn't long after that it began to turn, and it mainly because when it went into general release, instead of a bunch of old fogies going to see the film, it was 18-year-old kids like me, seeing it, and we were much more open to this very non-traditional way of viewing a movie, and the movie went on to become a commercial success as well as an artistic success.
Yeah, I think the tagline they used was the ultimate trip. So they're trip. They're trying to target the stoners and the acid guys.
But the
get fucked up and see this movie.
Exactly. The interesting thing was Kubrick never did drugs. Arthur C. Clarke, who was the co-author and collaborator of 2001, never did drugs. Those guys, Doug Trumbull, who was one of the big special effects guys, and also the special effects guy from Close Encounters, and a major force in that field.
Right.
He said we were all straight as could be. He said we couldn't have done this if we were high. We couldn't have done what we did.
No, I mean the film is famously incredibly scientifically accurate. So
Yeah.
they're going into the lab every day for 18 hours a day to like actually concoct a scientifically accurate portrayal of space. So yeah, they're not getting high.
Yeah, and you know, that had really never really been done before. I mean, you know, The Forbidden Planet was a really good science fiction movie, but they weren't trying to stay close to some scientific fact in that. It was just well done and well acted, and the special effects were pretty cool. But 2001 was the first one that really made a serious attempt at being, and that was the big takeaway from it, is like, yeah, this is probably how it would go down.
Yeah. I mean, just the whole way they dealt with the gravity, or the way that you see planets like twisting in the windows, and all of that, like down to the most minute detail, were as accurate as they could possibly get.
You know, the stuff you would see on the screens in the spaceship was, you know, accurate. I mean, would be accurate if that situation was actually occurring. So yeah, it was the detail is mind blowing. Among many mind blowing aspects of that film, the detail that was put into it is just off the charts.
And the technical filmmaking is so like, I like still can't comprehend like how they got some of these shots of like them like walking on the walls, or I don't know, it just it like looks so good. And they 68, so it's crazy.
And that's the other thing too. You're right. I mean, this was made in 1968. You know, Jesus, color movies hadn't been around that long. You know what I mean?
One of the inspirations of this film that I encourage people to check out was actually created by the National Film Bureau of Canada, called Universe. Did you watch this?
I did watch it, and it was fascinating. I had never seen it before, and thank you for sending that to me. And you can see the obvious influence that had on Kubrick.
Yeah, I mean, just from the first 30 seconds of this, you see the stars, and it's like this kind of eerie classical music. And the way they portray space is very much like what you see in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
And we should also say it's only 30 minutes long. It's a short for all intents and purposes.
It's an educational film, really, but they really experimented with it. And interesting fact, I don't know if you noticed, but the voiceover artist is Hal.
Douglas Rain.
And I was like, this kind of sounds like a pitched up Hal. And I was like, I wonder if he like was inspired somehow to use this kind of voice. Like, no, he got that guy.
That's right. I want that guy. It didn't occur to me till the last couple of minutes of it. I thought, wait a second.
But I encourage anybody who's a 2001 fan to check out that short.
Absolutely. I had heard about it, but I had never seen it. And
they have such a beautiful restoration of it that's up on YouTube. I mean, it just looks clear as a bell. It's beautiful.
Before we get too deep into it, Austin, I was wondering, like, what's your history with this movie or Kubrick? You said like you saw this movie. Well, you saw it with Steve and stuff. You remember when you first saw this one?
So I think actually the first time I saw it was, you know, we used to live in Park Ridge, and I was in high school. And when you were first starting to date my mom, and you'd kind of moved in before you guys got married, right?
Kind of, yeah.
But like I just remember you having that white box set of the Kubrick movies.
Of Kubrick,
that was where I got almost my entire education of Kubrick was from that box set that you had. Because, you know, at the time, obviously you couldn't pull it up on, you know, on demand or anything like that. And I just like wasn't super familiar with him when I was like 15, 16, other than, you know, I think my dad had shown me The Shining when I was pretty young, and, you know,
traumatized you.
A little bit, but I remember I remember not actually being as scared of it as people warned me that I would be. Like, I remember my mom and my dad just being like, "This movie's gonna ruin your life." Like, and
Here you
I just
go.
Watch it.
but I just remember
Let's
it being
fuck up
like more
Boston.
like, yeah, I remember it just being more unnerved by it than like truly like terrified. But then, yeah, you having that box set, I watched Clockwork Orange down in that living room on on those DVDs. I watched Full Metal Jacket and 2001, and those are like my first time viewing any of those movies. And it really did change my life, I would say. I mean, like, it sounds kind of dramatic, but I mean, the way that Kubrick makes you feel is it is something you will never forget. It's like if you're very disturbed or like horrified or inspired or mind blown, he just takes you to a level somehow psychologically that, like, my little teenage brain had never gone before.
Yeah.
And then I think that really made me like always be searching for a kind of movie that would blow my mind. You know what I mean? Like, this is before I had seen any like David Lynch movies or David Cronenberg or any of that stuff. Like, it was just kind of like, he was like, the entry point into like high cinema, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So that was my first time seeing it. But since then, you and I went to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and saw them live score it,
which was
that's
amazing.
Incredible.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
I saw at the Music Box, I believe it was, when they was this when they
do the 70 millimeter festival.
It was this, and I had seen it then, and now I've since bought another DVD that
it's like a 4K restoration.
It's something, and it's interesting that there is no remastered version or updated director's cut or any of that stuff with 2001. And there actually, I'm sure it had to have existed at one point, because after the premiere, with the reviews being so horrible, MGM made him cut like 20 minutes of the film out. So the thing that ran on day one existed, right?
Wow.
But was never seen again, and it's never been made available. I don't know if Kubrick had all of them destroyed or whatever, but so there is those kinds of how movies now, even with The Godfather and whatnot, they've redone,
recut it or shown deleted scenes and all.
None of that exists. It's 2001, basically. The same
what
thing
you see is what you get. Yeah.
What you see is what you get. Yeah. Hey, Zach, let me, what is your, first of all, what has been your experience with this film? Is it just recently, or is there any sort of history there?
I think the first time I saw it was in high school. I think maybe it's my dad that kind of turned me onto it, because he saw that I was getting more interested in filmmaking and making movies with my friends and stuff. He's like, well, if you like making movies, you got to see 2001. So I think we watched it together just at my parents' house. And I remember enjoying it. I don't think I was floored by it. Maybe I think I was a little too young, or it's like I was a little too slow for my high school brain. And
seeing it on a television, you're having your first experience seeing it on small screen. However big the screen was, it would be small by comparison to the theater.
Unfortunately, I've never seen it in theaters, so I'm very jealous of you guys. Watching it yesterday was my third time seeing it. Not every time, it's just been watching it at home. But I do like it more each time, and I recognize it as the masterpiece that it is now. And
I don't know if it was because I watched it again a couple of days ago, and I just pulled it up on what's now called Max, HBO Max. And I don't know if it was Max or if it was the cable company, but or if it was just being spoiled by having seen it, in the first time I saw it was in Cinerama,
Yeah.
the bent screen, and
Yeah.
then the 70 millimeter versions and the
The orchestra.
the orchestra, the 4K, and then
Yeah.
you pull it up on HBO Max, and it looked like shit. It was like
Yeah.
when it first came on, I was like, "What is wrong here?"
Yeah.
And, so I don't know.
I'm sad to hear that you had that experience because I watched it on Max this morning and I thought it looked crystal clear.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I just had it was just a bad night. I mean, we both have the same cable company, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I watched my stuff through an Apple TV. I don't know if it was like through your internet on your TV or sometimes.
No, it would have been through the cable company. So
yeah.
That
well, yeah, no, and this time watching it too, the new experience that I had with it was, first of all, I woke myself up very early because I wanted to like have like a, I don't know, like a fresh mind, like going into it without like the rest of my day, in the background.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I woke up at like 6 a.m. this morning and watched it with headphones, which I've never
interesting.
done.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it with headphones too.
Really?
Yesterday.
Wow. Yeah, it is a completely different experience because I mean, this movie is, I would say like, as visually stunning as it is, I mean, the sound I would say is like even more important.
No question.
Yeah.
Interesting little sidebar about how important the sound was and how important the music was to that experience. It was critical. And one of the things in reading the making of the film, I want to credit the author. I think his last name is Benson.
Yeah. Space
Great
Odyssey book.
Yeah.
That came out a few years ago. Yeah.
It's like the movie, it's a little dense. There's a lot there to process. But one of the little tidbits among many is that Kubrick had originally commissioned the guy, I think I wrote his name down here, to write the score. It was all going to be original music, and he was just using, the Strauss pieces and all of that as sort of placeholders.
Alex North is the name of the composer. Yeah.
And Alex North had written an entire score for the film. Never got off, never been heard by any. How would you like to be that guy?
I know. So rough.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the music is perfect. It's perfect for the film.
I heard somebody describe it really well that, that waltz, really invokes, kind of the whole history of human civilization. Because it's like you imagine people going from an ape to like waltzing elites, and with this like intricate music that kind of, is all about sort of custom and treating people with like a sort of particular manner. And then just how the music complements just the way that the spaceships are moving and like the literal gravity of space. I mean, it just, obviously.
It's like a space ballet.
Exactly.
A pen floating around, and it's very fun in a way.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think going back to talking how the movie was critically not received well initially, and then became what it became. But one of the things that I think the younger people who did see it at that time were much more willing to accept a nonverbal film. And I think if there's one thing you can absolutely say about 2001, it's pretty nonverbal.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of dialogue in there, and what is in there is fairly simple. I mean, it's just
it's like just clinical. It's like this is happening. Yeah. It's like,
so you have to be open to that. And I think younger people were more open to that approach. They were open to all kinds of approaches. A lot of just think of all the things that were happening in music and in art in general in 1968, 69, 70, or right around there. So a lot of new stuff going on, and that was just one of them. So he found an audience that was willing to. And the thing about Kubrick is, and I think this goes through all his films, is his style is unblinking. You know what I mean? He'll stay on a shot for a long time, and to the point if it starts to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and it invokes something very particular out of you. Like he's doing it for a reason, I guess.
And that's what, when you were talking about your first experience with Kubrick in general, that's what brought that to mind, is that he does. It's like he reaches inside of you in some way. And this is another fascinating thing that, it's funny when you watch a film, and you guys have watched multiple movies multiple times, and I'm sure you both have had the experience of, you see things that you didn't see the first 2 times, or in this case, the first 12 times I watched, you see other things. And one of the things I saw in this most recent watching was how many times food was involved at the eating of food in this film, from the Dawn of Man sequence when they're eating, raw meat from freshly killed animals, to the very end shot of the old Dave Bowman eating that,
eating dinner.
And in almost every case, it's not very appealing.
Yeah.
One point, like on the Jupiter, whatever their spaceship's called, they're eating like the different colored, like hummus or something, or it's just like different types of slime that they got to eat,
or like the liquefied food that they just like eat out of a straw, and like the children's photos, like corn and At
one point they do eat sandwiches like on the way to like the moon, and like that looked pretty good.
I had never put that together before until this recent showing of how predominant that is in the film.
I picked up on like there's some references to a couple of references to birthdays that I didn't really because when he like
the video chats,
Dr. Floyd, like with his daughter, it's like toddler daughter, and like he's like gonna miss her birthday party, and he's like asking her what she wants for her birthday. It's like, oh, a telephone, or like a bush baby.
A bush baby. Oh, you like a bush baby, would you?
Well, we'll have to see about that. And actual, fun fact, that is Stanley Kubrick's daughter, his real daughter, playing that role in the film.
Oh wow, she's really cute. She's great in it. Then there's also the birthday call from like Frank's parents. Like they're wishing him a happy birthday, and then like the end of the movie is kind of like a birth day in a way, like a rebirth.
Absolutely.
The embryo. So there's
the star birth. So when we saw it at the CSO, the thing that I remember about that screening was the humor that came out of it. I just remember everybody cracking up at certain scenes, like when he cuts to him with the anti-gravity toilet, and he's like, how do I do this? But I think strangely, the biggest laugh came from when Hal kills that guy and throws him into space. Like, because it's like, it was, I don't know. I don't know what it was about the mood in the room, but like, when it does that, like that quick zoom into Hal, and then you just see the guy like flying off into space.
Like through like a little window.
Just like woo! Like everybody started cracking up in the theater.
Isn't that
like,
funny?
I mean, like that's like the first like real murder that Hal commits.
Exactly.
And it was like everyone's cracking up. So I mean, I feel like it is always different every time you see it. And
and the things that trigger you, and one of the things that always triggered me when I saw it, but I think I was able to, in doing a little bit more research about the film for the podcast, was able to put some words to it, is the scene, the cut that goes from the Dawn of Man to space.
Mhm.
And that's been referred to, and you guys, I'd be interested to hear what the both of you had to say about it, as the most significant dramatic jump cut in the history of film, when it
Mhm.
goes from throwing the bone to what is actually a nuclear weapon that's floating in space.
Right.
And it is a hard cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, oh,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you've been in prehistory for the first 15 minutes of this film,
Yeah.
and then bang, it is
Yeah. A million years in the future. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And yeah, they talk about what it and how jarring it is, I guess. And I mean, I think I always felt that subconsciously, but never really could trace it as to why that was.
It's interesting because I was paying attention, obviously, to that shot this time a little bit closer than I usually do. And there is something about that shot that kind of bothers me, because it's like when he throws up the bone and it follows the bone for, a second or two, and then it cuts to another shot of the bone kind of falling.
Oh, that's right.
There's like two shots of the bone.
That's
and
right.
then it jump cuts to space. And I always want it to just be like a fluid motion of like him.
Yeah,
like,
just one shot.
But I mean, the connection that it puts in your head from, prehistory to, a million years in the future, we have a nuclear bomb that's circling the Earth. I mean,
right.
I mean, there is a direct line, from that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a nuclear bomb. I just thought it was like a satellite or something.
Well, you would know it by watching the film, but in doing some of the research on it, it's a nuclear warhead that's floating over the Earth, and it's
the advancement of weapon technology.
To accomplish the same thing that the ape picking up the bone was,
stay away from my puddle.
That's right. I kill you.
Let's talk about this. We've kind of been floating around here, but let's start from the beginning. I mean, so we have this overture where, like, this morning, I was like at dawn watching this movie, and I found myself just staring at a black square, for like 5 minutes while this music is playing. And I was like, oh my God, it's the monolith. Like, I was just like staring at this device, waiting for my mind to be blown. And I was...
Did you go up to it, try to touch it like the monkeys do, and then run away?
But I mean...
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of it like that. Yeah, the black screen is like, that's just the monolith.
Yeah, and I was listening to some Arthur C. Clarke interviews, and he said that originally the monolith, they thought of it, maybe it would be like kind of a transparent screen that was like projecting images at them that gave them some sort of intelligence. But then they realized that was a little too obvious, and they wanted to like make it more mysterious. So they turned it into just this rectangle that just kind of somehow through osmosis, like just transfers intelligence. And I mean, that just got me thinking a lot about, I mean, you can really tie it into, I mean, because obviously Kubrick must have been thinking about film and screens as a way of transmitting, information to people. I mean, he's one of the masters of that. And, we're seeing, kind of prophetic images of video technology, video telephone technology, like we're using right now.
Right.
And just obviously the iPhone, just like we have this black monolith, in our hands that has evolved our species.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like starting to evolve our brains in a different way that will never be changed.
Undone.
And I don't know, that was like my little that was what I was picking up on this time. I was like, whoa, this is because I'm taking notes on my phone and I'm looking at this black screen and looking at them. And I think for the first time I was like, I think I know what the monolith is. Like I get it now. Like, I don't know, or at least I have my own personal interpretation of it, but.
Well, no, it's a fascinating connection though, between, and that's a thought that I had watching it this time. My first thought, when it got past the dawn of man and into space, I had a feeling of disappointment. And my disappointment was we didn't get there. This movie takes place 22 years ago, and we're nowhere near that technological place. And I remember having a feeling of almost kind of like, wow, man, we didn't really, because back in 1968 that seemed like, yeah, but 30 some years later, that could be our world. And it is.
It's more like the end of Easy Rider when he's like, we blew it, man.
We blew it, man. Yeah. But they draw a connection between also Spake Zarathustra, the
right. Yeah.
The
yeah.
But I'm talking about the book.
Yeah, Frederick Nietzsche wrote. Yeah,
and it's probably absolutely no coincidence that music, in addition to being perfect for what it's where it is in the film, but it's there's also a connection between Nietzsche's idea of the Superman. And that, his idea that the human race, is merely a transitory place between prehistory man and, the next big thing, which would have been whatever intelligence they found on Jupiter to move us along. And somebody else described the monolith that they found on the moon as a burglar alarm.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like,
because, whoever planted it there wanted to know when this species that lived on Earth had the capability of getting to the moon, which is only 250,000 miles away. But that would be a signal to them that, like, okay, guess who moved into the neighborhood?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I heard. Yeah, and that signal, I think, is being transmitted to Jupiter.
Correct.
So that's why they
go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So it's like there's like multiple monoliths that are just like trying to drag humanity like out,
kicking
into space.
And screaming. Yeah. Out of literally out of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And into space.
Yeah.
And that his Kubrick and Clark's theory, because Clark has explored this idea in a couple of things before 2001, and it's not a novel science fiction plot that our species has been impacted by non-human intelligence, and that has affected our growth progress in various ways. So it's kind of a fun fun theory to dwell on, you talk about that Canadian film Universe, and they that it really is a documentary, but they get into the vastness of the universe and in a way that then now your mind starts to go, oh my God, I can't,
yeah,
this is too much.
Well, you are, I mean, it's so interesting that you play Master Chief, who is this spaceman, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And that you started, your career as Master Chief in 2001 is just like so perfect. But
it is perfect, yeah.
But did 2001 spark your interest in like space and sci-fi, or did
absolutely.
You didn't have like previous interest in it, or passing?
I did have previous interest in it, but they often describe the early science fiction pre 2001 science fiction films as westerns, and they, they were Westerns, but that you're wearing spacesuits and riding flying saucers instead of riding horses and
it's like aliens instead of Native Americans. Yeah,
aliens instead of Native Americans.
And you got like little space guns. Yeah,
and instead of 6-shooters. But the storylines were basically Westerns is what they were, and that so I mean they were kind of fun to look at. But it wasn't until 2001 and, the classic conversation that Kubrick had with Arthur C. Clarke, the initial conversation, which happened, I think, back in 62 or 63, when he said, I'd like to make a really good science fiction movie.
Yeah. Like a real one.
Accomplished. Yeah, a real one. And so, yes, I had, sort of a boyhood interest in science fiction, but it wasn't until 2001 that it was like you really dove headfirst into that genre. And I always maintained that science fiction is a tough genre to like because there's so much bullshit in there. You got to kiss a lot of frogs until you find a 2001 or an Aliens or a Close Encounters or something like that.
Yeah, I think the simplicity of this movie really helps it because a lot of science fiction, it gets bogged down in the world and the lore and like all this history you got to ingest. But there isn't really much of that at all in this movie.
No, that's right.
And like, like the simplicity of the Dawn of the Man sequence at the beginning kind of really exemplifies that. There's no dialogue. You just got these guys in monkey suits and tapirs, which I love the tapirs in there because I really love those animals. It's such an interesting choice for those to be like the docile kind of prey.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, how do you guys feel about the Dawn of Man section of this movie? Because it's very different from the rest of the movie.
Well, it took, like I said back in the beginning, I had no pre-concept of this film whatsoever. I didn't know anything about it other than it was a science fiction space movie. That was it. So to have it open up, in prehistory, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I remember having that same response when I first saw it. I was like, isn't this about space?
I thought this was and we stay there for a decent amount of time, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a long movie. If we're starting here and we're going to end in 2001, we're going to be here. But I, and again, not to get too bogged down in the trivia aspects of it, but there's so much fascination, and because this podcast is about film and various people's appreciation of it. It's also, I think you guys also will touch on technique sometimes.
Absolutely.
One of the techniques that they use in the Dawn of Man sequence is something that was brand new at that time called front projection. I think even rear projection was relatively new, but front projection was unheard of. And they use that in the Dawn of Man sequence, and it does really put you down there with the apes.
Yeah, I was watching a video about this, and it is very complex how they shot this because they shot it all on a studio, the Dawn of Man stuff, and they just had these still images from Africa that they turned into transparencies, I guess.
That's what I'm trying to.
And the transparencies are what are getting projected, and
so the camera is actually shooting through. The camera is shooting through the
image,
to the soundstage, and so the effect is much more enveloping than rear projection, which is always looks like what it is,
right?
Which is, that it's
like a green screen or something, behind somebody, yeah.
So I think that's my poor attempt at trying to describe it, but I found it fascinating the way they did use rear projection. And this is because again, you have to keep reminding yourself this is 1968.
Right?
There's no flat screen TVs. There's no LED. None of that stuff exists. So all those images you see on screens in the various spaceships, that's all being shot from cameras underneath the spaceship that are literally shooting that image onto something that resembles a television screen.
Right.
And that's how they get that effect,
Mhm.
because there was no other way to do it.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, I think some of those, like the video calls, that was actually some technology that AT&T had developed for like the 1964 World's Fair.
World's Fair, yeah.
Yeah. And so, there was prototypes of it that I think Kubrick was using for that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the Dawn of Man scene, I think it's, obviously it's iconic and it's great, and it's very complex in the way that they shot it. But I still can't I just see men in monkey suits. Like, I do not see these guys as like prehistoric.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I know, but think of the challenge, what he's trying to do, because these aren't these. I mean, they are pre-human,
right?
Those creatures, but they're on the cusp of, that the result of them discovering tools, i.e. the bone, results in them becoming upright.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how else you do it. I mean, the way that, the makeup and the costumes look as convincing as I think you could possibly create at that time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It does kind of, I get what it's doing, and I think that it is impressive and it's very essential to the overarching thing. But I do find it to be a little silly sometimes.
Well, it's again, it is, of course, the suspension of disbelief. There was no animal they could use that would do
exactly
that, right?
And
think about this, when they would show the apes, for lack of a better word, talking, making noises with their mouth, and you would watch, you would watch it move. They had to, like, the actors inside those things had to use certain muscles that were not meant for that to open the mouth and make it look like what it was doing. And so I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you, but it is important to.
It is impressive. No, it's still.
I think the guys in the suits are doing some good performances there. They're like mimes or something. Like
they're mimes. Yeah.
And they, like, Stanley Kubrick had to find like really skinny guys, so like they didn't look too like weird in the monkey suits.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, but you still can't shake the thing that's like, oh, I know these are guys in suits, but I do love the moment when they sick that leopard on one of the guys, like they just drop a leopard.
Yeah, hello.
That's crazy. Like, did you get any stories about that particular moment in any of the books or any of the research you did? Because
you know what, I'm sure that there was, but because
that looks real. Like that looks like a real,
big real
cat
jumping on a real guy. Albeit in an ape suit, but he's
it doesn't look like he's. Other than the costume that he's wearing, that I don't know what he's got protecting him. But that's a pretty harrowing moment. It still shocks me to this day. Like,
well, they talk. Kubrick was, he was, everything was at the service of the film, and this was in the piece, Austin, that you sent me today about the stuntman who was portraying Frank Poole when he got cut loose and was drifting off into space, and then Bowman goes and gets him, and that whole sequence of what he was doing, and they had him suspended by I think they said 2 wires over a 30-foot sound stage with a concrete floor and no padding. Now, first of all, why couldn't you put a little padding down there?
You're like most innovative, most expensive budget MGM has ever done. It's like,
and you couldn't put like a net and something. So anyway, the stuntman is hanging literally by 2 wires, and if those don't hold, he would die. But the effect is achieved. The guy, he looks like he's weightless in space. The other thing was and this has to do with Kubrick's, like I said, all things in service of the film. Apparently the spacesuit was hermetically sealed. Now, why it was hermetically sealed, I don't know. But the point was,
Method
and they had
acting.
they had like a little oxygen bottle that would pump oxygen into the helmet so the guy could breathe. But there was no place for the carbon dioxide to go. So the almost died, on several occasions while shooting this sequence, and was literally ready to kill Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's just an example of his, everything in service of that art was, fascinating. Another point that I think is worth sort of touching on, we sort of alluded to this, in terms of the film reflecting reality. And one of the things that I got specifically from this watching was the effect of artificial intelligence on mankind.
Yes.
Because now it's a real hot button issue right now. It's a real
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah, and Hal does not look all that far-fetched at all.
No.
We're
in there.
Fact, he may look a little primitive,
Yeah.
by comparison to where we are now. But it's such a, again, talking about the genius of Kubrick and Clark to be able to deal with these issues in 1968 when there wasn't even there weren't computers, much less any sort of internet.
Yeah.
Or anything, resembling, the kind of AI that we're looking at now.
Yeah, just like this year, we got like AI, like art and like Chat GPT, and even while I was watching this movie, I got a notification from Spotify. It's like, let our new AI DJ, like,
oh, I got that too. Yeah,
yeah, and I was like, oh my God, Hal's trying to play me music now.
Oh, you know what? And I went with it. I'm your new, let your new Spotify DJ, and he's playing me all these like Irish folk songs, and the DJ, sort of has this African American accent a little bit. Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah,
Oh, he
yeah.
actually talks to you.
Okay, I got some tunes to play for you.
Oh,
and
no.
it's the Chieftains.
And it's
right?
like, we
I'm
know
like,
you're Irish, so
yeah. I was like, wow, dude. Didn't really read the room all that well.
Oh man.
Wow.
Yeah. My Spotify DJ has just been playing me Daisy.
I'm half crazy.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that the parallels are becoming ever more
Exactly
prophetic. I mean, yeah, because like, especially when he's, powering him down at the end, where he's like, I feel it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. It's like he has emotions. He's like,
my mind is going.
Yeah. He has a real concept of what it's like to die.
yeah.
And that's what's happening. And that theme is explored a little bit in the sequel to 2001, which is 2010. That Kubrick had nothing to do with, but they do explore, because Hal's consciousness survives, and as does Dave Bowman's, and they sort of become one. And so it's the entity that is Hal lived on past the destruction of the machine.
Yeah, I saw that movie 2010 last year, and it's not a great movie, but
Right.
there's definitely some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's got a pretty impressive cast, and Peter Hyams directed it.
Mhm.
He sought out Kubrick and asked him if he could do it. He said, I'd like to do it, but if you don't want me to do it, I won't do it.
Yeah, you got to get his blessing.
Yeah, and Kubrick was like, I don't give a shit. I mean, words to that effect. He had moved on. He said, do whatever you want. Yeah, he said, make it your own film. Don't worry about
Tough act to follow, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. But I agree with you, Zach. I think it's not a great film, but it's if you look at it as a standalone. I mean, Helen Mirren's in it, Roy Schreider, John
Bob
Lithgow.
Balaban. Yeah.
I mean, it's got a pretty impressive cast, and
Yeah. But which is a pretty big contrast from 2001, which has no identifiable
yeah,
famous
Gary
people
Lockwood
in
was,
it.
he was the, if there was a familiar face, it was Gary Lockwood, who was Frank Poole, and he was, you know, he was a secondary actor in westerns. I mean, you recognized his face, but that was about it.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive that like the most memorable character that comes out of this movie is Hal, and he's just like a red light, but he makes such a big mark, such an impression on people who watch the movie. It's pretty impressive.
And even more so now, just in terms of what we're talking about for current day.
Yeah, as a voice actor yourself, Steve, you must be. Yeah, it's an incredible voice actor performance of Hal.
It's
like,
so interesting. The challenge with voice acting is the only tool at your disposal is your voice, as opposed to being on film or on stage where you have your body and movement
and your face,
and your facial expression to express whatever it is you're trying to express. Voice acting, you got your voice to do that, and the way and what was his name again, Austin?
Douglas Rain.
Douglas Rain. The way he does it, because it's a pretty flat, monotone delivery, and the screen is giving you nothing. You're looking at a red dot.
Nothing.
So, and yet, like you said, Zach, the most emotional entity in the entire film is Hal, and it's delivered by an actor who's delivering it in a very flat. He's trying to be as monotone as he possibly can without sounding like a machine, and it works. And he did do, a really good job.
Like I always have that. Just a moment. Like,
just a moment. Yeah. And you get it
because he's like, it feels like Hal is like, wait, hold on. Like something's coming in. Like,
yeah. Please
hold
that thought.
I got something coming. Like, just give me a second. Like, there's like some emotion behind it, like some kind of like, oh shit, hold on. Like,
yeah, and you feel it, right? I mean, you when he does that, just a moment.
Yeah,
it's like you get it. It was like,
you're
okay.
He's processing something, like some new
Here
information.
Here we go.
So this is the question I want to pose to both of you guys, and I guess I have my own theories, but so what is the mission that Hal is trying to protect that is so important?
The mission is they have discovered extraterrestrial life, and it's coming from Jupiter, and they're going to check it out.
But why does he think that it, like, why
that the crew can't be let in on it?
Yeah, like why is it that Hal is so protective of that secret? I'm not sure why he finds it like important to like kill all the people in order to protect that secret message. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I feel like he's like trying to preserve himself because he like overhears or he lip reads that they're going to disconnect Hal. So he's like, I gotta get rid of these guys before they do that. And like, well, I'm gonna have to kill everyone else because they're gonna figure out maybe that I took care of these guys too. So it's like, well, I gotta kill everybody.
But the lip reading is after they suspect that he's trying to compromise.
Like, well, no. I read it like I actually think it's a combination of what both of you said, but what the problem was then is that Bowman and Poole think there's something wrong with Hal, that he's misread. He's not perfect. And if he's misdiagnosed something on the ship, now he can't be trusted. Right. If he can't be trusted, we have to disconnect him because we don't know if this has never happened before. And if this could happen for this, so he's got to be taken out of the picture. And Hal's not a fan of that. Now the question is, why is he not a fan? Because of his the priority of the mission, or is it the priority of maintaining his own existence?
Because it's like I was reading it like, because that first mission out into space, that first spacewalk where they're fixing the antenna or whatever, and then they come back and they're like, there was nothing wrong, Hal.
Right.
And like, was he trying to kill him then? to get him out into space, or he just fucked up.
I think he just fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's not willing to admit it.
Yeah.
He's like,
and he's
I'm
not
perfect.
willing to admit. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Sound like
have
any-
errors.
Sound like anybody we know?
Well, definitely not as intelligent.
Definitely not as intelligent. That's right.
So he just messed up. He didn't want to admit it. And they're like, we got to disconnect him. And then he got pissed off and killed everybody.
Yeah. Or he got pissed off or
he's trying to protect the mission.
He's trying to protect the mission.
Yeah.
The mission, the other question.
Hey, missions change.
They always do. Missions change. They always do. That's right.
Yeah, things would have gone down differently if Master Chief was on that Jupiter.
Yeah, it would have been a whole different thing.
Yeah, you would have been taking out Hal right away.
That's right.
Just
yeah.
blast it.
But talking about the very, very end of the film, the
what's happening
there? Is there? Well, I don't think there is any definitive answer to that. It's all subject to interpretation. But I thought what Zach said earlier about your comment about how birthdays popped up in the film on more than one occasion, and that indeed the ending is a birth. And what
like going down a canal, like a space
right,
canal.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that means, I'm asking as I'm watching the film does the star child physically exist? And it's pretty close to Earth, so they got to be freaking out.
Yeah.
But
see that up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's no mention of that big baby in 2010, the sequel,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
They just ignore that bit.
Yeah, that never happened. So, so is it meant to be emblematic of something else or symbolic of something? And then if so, what? This is the rebirth of man, and that goes back to the Nietzsche thing about that we're merely here to transition from primitive to highly advanced, and now we've gotten there. And let the games begin.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My interpretation of it this time, and again, I don't know if this is right, but they were going to show an alien in the end of the movie. Like they had prototypes of like how they would show some kind of alien. But I guess there's a quote where Kubrick said, trying to show an alien is like trying to show the face of God. Like we have no idea what this would look like or what form it would take. So it's probably better that we just kind of imply that, on his way to Jupiter, and this is my interpretation, I haven't heard this, but it's like on his way to Jupiter, he was maybe like intercepted by some alien and brought into kind of like a human habitat,
right?
To kind of be like studied, or because when especially when I was listening to it on headphones, when you're first in that, that room, you can hear these crazy noises going on outside, which I just assume are maybe like some alien
chit chat,
chit chatter, something.
Yeah.
Where is he at the end of the movie? I mean, obviously everybody's got their own interpretation, but that was kind of my feeling. So he's just like kind of captured by an alien and in this weird little habitat that they made for him.
Yeah, I don't really know, but it is interesting. It's like an ornate looking bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's like interesting, like the sequencing of like his Eva pod, I think they call it, like is just like in the bedroom, and then the second later that the pod is gone and it's just him standing there in a spacesuit. Right. And then he sees this man like eating dinner. Then suddenly the spacesuit guy's gone and it's just the older version of himself eating, and then he sees the even older version of himself in the bed, and then then suddenly where the guy that was eating is gone. So it's like kind of, I just like the weird, it's like feels like a dream logic kind of thing. It doesn't feel
very much so.
Doesn't feel real at all.
I think the idea that whoever was calling them there, it has now has them, has Bowman, and has a human being, and that the room is a place that would be psychically familiar to him, as well as maybe protect. They've created this little womb, for lack of a better terms, that a human being could exist in. And then you see this rapid aging process happen, and then the end is a rebirth, and so I think it is I mean, there obviously there's alien interaction there, that is happening, and that the end of the movie is mankind now taking the next step.
Yeah.
And I think that's, whatever that step is, of course, it is up to the movie ends before that happens. But that's what it feels like. It's steps, from primitive man to space age man to whatever the next thing is.
Beyond man.
Yeah, beyond. There you go. Wow. Okay, I like that. Beyond man.
Yeah. I mean, do you believe in aliens, Steve?
I for the longest time I have, only because, and the point is brought up in that Universe film that you sent me. But Carl Sagan has said this, and many times, that the mathematical possibilities of there not being other advanced intelligence in the universe, it's impossible, given the vastness of space that we're this tiny grain of sand on a huge beach is the only place where intelligent life was able to exist. Then the next question to that is the thing that's called the Fermi paradox, which is the scientist, atomic scientist, having lunch with his other atomic scientist friends. Fermi was his name, and asking the question, well, if there is intelligent life in the universe, where are they? And it's not a sarcastic comment. It's more like, why haven't we made contact? Or they contacted us? And the two prevailing theories are, one, the vastness of the universe. It is like trying to find that, stepping out on a beach and trying to find a particular grain of sand. And the other theory is that not human intelligence, but intelligence, advanced intelligence, reaches a point in its evolution where it self-destructs. That's sort of the pessimistic way of looking at it, is that intelligence gets to a point where we create things that basically blow ourselves up, and then you start all over again. So if there was intelligent life beyond us, that was ahead of the food chain than where we are, they got to a point where they figuratively or literally blew themselves up, and you start all over again. That's why we haven't contacted anybody. So that's not a very optimistic way of looking at things, and I tend to go with the other one, is that they just haven't found our grain of sand yet. And that we don't possess the intellectual capability to travel vast distances in space yet. Haven't. Can we get it? Theoretically, I think it's possible, but we're just not there yet. And until that happens, we're just stuck in this little backwater place, that unless either like somebody else, my stepdaughter Julie, we were talking about, for some reason, about alien life. She has a theory that, if you noticed, the government lately seems to be much more forthcoming about talking about UFOs. Have you noticed this lately?
Right. Yeah.
And they're making it public, where it used to be like, no, that's a weather balloon. Now all of a sudden the military is like, well, I don't know, man. We've seen a lot of things and we're not sure, but we're keeping an eye on it. And her theory is they're prepping us. The time has come, because, and the one thing that they do say, I think they say this in the movie, maybe not, that if other extraterrestrial life is discovered, the you the game changing aspects of that cannot be overstated.
No.
It would change our life exponentially in every way you could possibly change human existence, to
Yeah.
realize that there's a not only intelligent life out there, but more intelligent than us by a long shot.
Yeah.
And so it to me it's a fascinating subject, and I would like to believe that that it's out there and that contact will be made. But you know what else? I also thought we'd have colonies on the moon in 2001.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd have flying cars by now. And, we don't. So I'm a little, my view of the future may not, may be too colored with watching too many episodes of the Jetsons,
Yeah.
We do have Zoom calls though.
We do have Zoom. There you go. Good point.
And we have AI, so we got a couple things.
Yeah, there's a couple things going for us.
A couple things, yeah.
Well, Steve, is there anything else? I mean, we got a few more minutes here. Don't want to take up too much more of your time, but do you have any like final thoughts or things that you didn't bring up? Some other like scenes that you liked, or anything else you want to bring up before we let you go here?
I think to appreciate genius on any level is a privilege, and I feel like we've all experienced some sort of genius, whether it's Jimi Hendrix playing guitar or Stanley Kubrick making 2001. When you're in the presence of that and you witness it, it's humbling and it's awe-inspiring, and in a lot of ways it can be reassuring that maybe we're not such a bad species after all.
Yeah.
If we can, if some of us can achieve this level of genius, and we get to absorb it. So, and I really feel like with 2001, that is certainly personally the way I felt, is that we got to see somebody do something that is just so amazing and thought-provoking and interesting, that it's a privilege that we were able to have that experience. So I guess that would be my final thought, and just the joy of the art of motion picture making, and you guys really, it's so fascinating to hear everybody's experience with a film that they were moved by, and what an interesting medium film is, that in this day and age we can all sort of relate to. And so that's why I enjoy the podcast so much, because
thanks.
it's just I think it's a subject worthy of not only do we talk about specific films, but we talk about the emotional reaction that it brings out in people. And I think it's always it says a little bit about everybody, and that's how it comes out,
Yeah. My dad has said that we are the Stanley Kubrick of podcasters, so that's
there you go. All right, I'll go with that.
He actually said that.
I'll go with that.
We're pretty much the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, Zach. So what are your final thoughts on this?
I think it's good.
You think it's got legs?
Yeah,
it's good. Pretty good.
I think he's doing some interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about how this movie is slow, and it is slow.
It is slow,
but that's good.
Yeah.
I think it's very intentional, and it's well paced. Actually, I don't know. It's just like kind of impressive, like just like the sequences of like David going to rescue Frank, and like also like him like doing the repair on the satellite, like how much time he lets those scenes breathe, like just like how methodical it is. And there's like no music during those parts. You're just like, you're hearing the breathing.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of silence, and it's just you really get the sense of what it would be like to like do these kind of tasks in space and how long it would take. And I don't know, it's it's an experience that only movies can really give you, because you can't really get that sense from any other medium of what it'd be like to be doing this shit in space. And this movie does such a good job of evoking that, and the cinematography is just incredible. Like, it was incredible for 1968, but like by today's standards, like these shots are so beautiful.
Yeah, they still hold up.
Yeah. I love that there's like a lot of symmetry in the shots. That I always love nice symmetry, or just like a lot of things are kind of framed dead center, which I really enjoy. I love the shot of like the flight attendant, like kind of like walking like up the wall, and like
right.
That's like such a, I don't know how they even achieved that shot, but I love that. And also the shot of like the pod, which is a cool design, that little pod that they float around on with the little arms, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, when it's holding Frank's like little yellow spacesuit body, and like it's waiting to get into the pod bay, and Hal's like holding it, just like that wide shot of like it like waiting, holding the body, like that shot's like kind of burned in my memory right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just tons of incredible shots and moments, and it all comes together really well, and it's a great movie to come back to and think about and ponder about.
Yeah.
And it's great to talk about it with Steve.
It's
well,
with
and
the spaceman himself.
There you go. I think the greatness of any art is does it withstand that test of time? Does it is it something you can go back to and get a new appreciation for time and time again? And I think this is a film that does that you can get a new appreciation every time. And see, like we talked earlier, I mean, sometimes you see things that you never saw before. And I think that's the mark of something that's truly a cut above.
I was gonna say almost exactly that as my final thought is, I do think that the enduring quality of this film and the fact that you can see something different in it, even though it's so iconic and you've seen these images over and over, and the music is so iconic, and we were trying to kind of stray from all of the trivia that goes behind this movie, but the creation of the movie is the movie. Like the way that he did this can never be separated from the thing itself. And the fact that he did this before we went to the moon, and like showed us what the moon might look like before we actually even went there, or what like a guy in a spacesuit might look like. And, the way that him and Arthur C. Clarke's, attention to detail and the scientific matter of fact of it is like, they were showing you what it's going to look like if we ever get there. So like, if we ever have a centrifuge in the middle of space, it will probably look like this. Like, I mean, I don't think the science has changed that much. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I mean, I can see like, the same way that the video calls look like a a primitive Zoom call.
Right.
I can imagine that these space stations, sometime in the future will not be too far off.
No.
And I mean, I just think that it's an incredible feat. What can you say that hasn't been already said?
Well, the one thing I would say is that I think the food is going to just get worse.
These ham sandwiches are going to still be shitty.
And that may be the best we're going to get. So that's
my big takeaway.
Yeah, we're going to be eating roast beef through a straw.
Okay. Yeah, I did have one more thought just about the cinematography. I just love like how sometimes Stanley Kubrick does these like handheld shots. Because most of the movies like these like static kind of like wide shots that don't move, but then suddenly there'll just be these moments like when they're approaching the monolith on the moon, where like it's actually a handheld like kind of like shaky camera. And I just think that's just an interesting and like such a compelling choice. And he does that in some of his other movies too, but I just wanted to shout out that little things.
Yeah.
I think,
And there
cool
is kind of like a weird camera guy in the in the movie, like when they're first sitting down at that meeting, he's like taking pictures.
Oh, right.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
done now, and he walks
Yeah.
off. It's like, what was
Weird
that
camera
doing?
guy. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And
What
then
was
he's
that
got
about?
that one like twisty camera when they're on the
Yeah.
moon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because right before the monolith like does its big signal shriek sound, like they're like setting up to take a group photo, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like
Yeah.
they're all trying to take a photo with the monolith, and then it's like
Yeah. Yeah. So they can post it on Facebook. Yeah.
yeah.
You have a few gigs to promote. Do you have a few plugs?
I guess I should play. Yeah. I'm going to be in Stockton, California for Stockton Con.
July 8th through 9th.
Thank you. And then we'll be in Dublin for a big comic convention, video game pop culture convention in Dublin, Ireland in mid-August. So looking forward to that. And boy, there's several that's going to be in Arkansas. I got a lot of conventions, but those are the one that's coming up if you're in the central California area, central and northern California area. I'll be in Stockton for a nice show there, and then Salt Lake City, which will be a great one coming up in September, I believe. It'll be my first one there, and that's apparently an awesome convention. So I'm looking forward to that. So those are my plugs.
Cool. Well, good luck with all of that, and thank you so much for all of your time and talking about this movie.
Well, it was fun. It was fun because when you first broached the subject, the initial reaction, and I had the same reaction was, yeah, I know it's 2001, but maybe we should talk about something else. We sort of beat that horse to death, but that was not the case, at least for me. I really enjoyed digging into it. I enjoyed watching it again. I enjoyed doing a little more research on it, and then being able to hear you guys, your thoughts and feelings on it. It is my favorite film, and that's the nature of this entire podcast is let's talk about our favorite films, and it's fun to talk about them.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. We love the movies and we love our family.
There you go.
True. And we love our favorite movies.
That's right.
No, I mean, it seems like, ground that, has been so well tread, but, But yeah, I mean, I think that the nature of this podcast is to talk to people about the thing that really stirs something in them. And
exactly.
And this is that movie for you. I mean, since I've known you, you've talked about this movie and how much it's changed your life and how influential it is. And it's just so incredible that like you are an iconic spaceman.
Who started in 2001.
So crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
You
are part of like sci-fi history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Halo is a monolith franchise in a way.
Yes. In a way it is. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It changed a lot in video games, and you were part of it from the beginning. So I think that's really cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are going to be excited to hear your perspective on this stuff. So
I hope so. Yeah, it was fun to do for sure.
Yeah, and we should do our little plugs. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Make sure to rate and review and subscribe to wherever you're listening to this podcast. We're also on social media at Film with Family on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. Check us out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have anything you want to say to us, send us a voice message or a comment. Maybe we missed something or need something corrected. You can send us an email at filmwithfamilypodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, and you can also follow me and Austin on Letterboxd if you're interested in what we're watching, what movies we're watching. Austin C. Pruett and zacharyzweifler are our handles.
Yeah, and as I said, we love the movies.
And we love our family.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Finish the fight.
Finish the fight.
Finish the podcast.
Yeah, please.
Please finish the podcast. All right. Sayonara.
See ya.